been 3.5 weeks, and even though 3.5 weeks went by like this, I know it was a long 3.5 weeks for many of you sitting around the circle, and many in the staffs, and many who work in the LOB. It was a long 3.5 weeks. But what struck me, Madam President, is that in those 3.5 weeks when we were supposed to make some serious and dramatic changes to the budget, or at least that was the impression that we all got here in the circle, not a whole lot changed in terms of the numbers. $46 million in revenue changes were created, and $41 million on expense items was generated. So to me, that's out of a $40 billion budget, biennium budget, that's not a whole lot. Percentage-wise, that's absolutely nothing. So I think some people are wondering, what did happen up here for the last 3.5 weeks when we had great expectations that we may end up with a much better product at the end of the day for the taxpayers of Connecticut, as well as all citizens of the state of Connecticut. And during that 3.5 week period, we received some more bad news, and we learned a lot of things about how things are in Connecticut from an objective and statistical data point of view. And I know a lot of us became much more concerned that if we didn't get this budget thing right and the implementer right, that we would be taking a step in a very bad direction. And sure enough, some of those numbers came out, and while it might not surprise some of you, I know it will certainly disappoint all of you. The GDP, the state output for 2013 to 2014, was a mere 0.6%. That was a number that was downgraded. We got bad information before. During that same time period, the state of New York was up 2.5%. Both Massachusetts and Vermont were up by 2.3%. Rhode Island was twice the growth rate. Good old Rhode Island was up by a factor of 200% over our economic output. That put us at number 42 in the nation in terms of economic growth. And if you look at the last 4 years and put that all together and do it mathematically in a compounding fashion, 0.4% is the total growth rate on an annual basis, compounding over that period of time that passed. And you had Fred Carstens from the University of Connecticut, our very own Fred Carstens, and he, at the beginning of this year, this calendar year, predicted that Connecticut would pick up an additional 44,000 jobs over the next 2 years, the biennium, and that was back in, I think it was April or May of this year. And now he's, unfortunately, based on these revised figures, going to have to reduce that growth rate down to 0. We really can't afford to be doing this to ourselves. The implementer here is not the underlying budget, but it is very closely related. And as was pointed out before, it's supposed to be an instruction manual or an implementation vehicle through which the budget is implemented. And it really seems much more like a Christmas tree in June than it does anything else. And when the underlying budget that the implementer is supposed to implement, when that budget upsets people like Jeff Inmelt and the leadership at Aetna and Travelers and Starwood and probably dozens and dozens of other companies, both large and small and medium size, we know we've probably done the wrong thing with respect to how we set up this budget. And everybody's going to pay a price, because we're talking about some of the largest employers in the state of Connecticut. And our sole purpose here for the last 4 and 6 years, or as long as I've been here, or even involved in state government, is to create a great job growth environment, a great economic development environment. And here we are taking one step forward and 1.5 steps backwards each and every time we pass bills that don't serve the people of Connecticut very well. Another element of the underlying budget, which, again, the implementer is related to because it is supposed to put that into effect, is the hospital tax. Already, economists are telling us that this is going to cause us to lose 4,000 jobs over the next 2 years, and it's going to probably cost $200 to $250 million in economic activity in the state. And we haven't even started the biennium yet. So, with all these other changes, it could actually be a whole lot worse once you put it all together. So, I don't have any questions for the co-chair of the Finance Committee. I think everything is fairly straightforward in this implementer bill. We already went through most of the details of the budget that anybody had concerns about, and certainly items that I might have had any kind of concern about. So, in conclusion, I hope everybody pays very close attention to what this implementer bill and this whole implementer process is all about at the end of the day. And are we doing this really just to kind of get over this budget hump and get into the new year? or are we doing this because we're thinking altruistically and we're doing the right thing objectively for the citizens and the taxpayers of Connecticut? I would argue we have to change the way that we are doing things because this certainly does not do the above. With that, Madam President, I'll hang it up. Thank you.